Hey guys, Prowl 1701 here, and today we're going to be ranking the controversial 13th Doctor era, from worst to best, from the low lows to the granted high highs. Now I will be counting Flux as one story because I just have a hard time breaking it into separate episodes, so Flux will just be one entry on the list. And with that in mind, there are 25 places on this list to get through, so let's get started and look at Jodie Whittaker as the 13th Doctor. At the bottom, in 25th place, is Arachnids in the UK. What I have called one of the 3 worst episodes in all of Doctor Who, alongside Kill the Moon and Fear Her. This story is dreadful. The Doctor's moral integrity, which does happen quite a bit with the 13th Doctor, is very much called into question. The fact that she won't stop supposedly the bad person, not a bad guy, but a bad person, not a very good person. The little Trump stand-in, which why they had to do that, I have no idea either. I don't even know why that's there. From shooting the spider, which will kill it quickly, to letting it suffocate, basically, which is much more excruciating, but somehow thinks she's in the right, especially after she had just blown up or suffocated all of the baby ones. It's like, I just killed a whole bunch of these little ones. Don't you dare do that to that one big one, even though it's going to die anyway more painfully. I don't know, I've never been able to watch this one a second time. I hated it so much on transmission. It's one of those, I'm like, part of me's like, I need to go back and revisit it just so I can critique it better. But that would mean actually having to revisit it, and I don't think I'm up for that. I just don't care for anything in this story, except for that one scene when the dude gets dragged down in like the bathroom. That's pretty cool. But I don't know, spider episodes just don't work for Doctor Who. I've never seen one that's done effectively. Kill the Moon is garbage, this one is garbage, and Planet of the Spiders is good without being great. Bit of a letdown for the end of the Pertwee era. Has good moments, but it's not a great story. So yeah, this one's just absolute dreck. Number 24 on the list is Legend of the Sea Devils. This one is terrible, and it feels like it got screwed up in the edit. This is the worst edited episode I've ever seen of Doctor Who. It feels so clunky. The editing is so weird. I feel like this episode was supposed to be longer because it was a special, but I think it's just the standard length, like 45, 46 minutes. I feel like there was supposed to be another 5, 10, 15 minutes we're missing out on here. Some of it makes no sense. Most notably, that scene when Dan knocks out all the aliens with the sword. He just, you guys have heard me criticize that before. They come at him and he does this. And then they all just fall down, and I'm like, if I look up Deus Machina in the dictionary, that's going to be the picture it shows me. If there's like a picture version of a dictionary. Oh man, it was so bad. Then there's the bit when the Sea Devil does like the Super Mario jump onto the ship, and somebody has that on YouTube where they add in the Mario effect when it jumps, like, It's hilariously funny, and I can't unhear it now. It's just such a badly edited together episode. Some of the effects on it look pretty decent. I love the fact they stuck with the classic Sea Devil design instead of trying to redo them like they did with the Silurians, which is terrible. So I'll give them props for you basically sticking to the classic Sea Devil design. That's pretty cool. Other than that, it's just a mess of an episode. I don't really... No, thank you. Number 23, The Battle of Whatever. I don't remember much about this one. It's another one I've only watched once. I've never wanted to revisit it. Tim Shaw is a terrible villain. We found out that the Doctor herself caused all of the problems in this episode when she sent him away in her first episode. Her very first story? When she sent him away, well, she sent him here, and where he landed, the people there think he's like some kind of god or something. So it's once again the Doctor causing her own problems down the road and causing a lot of other people grief in that time. Think of all the other people's lives have been shattered because they think this guy's a god. and her having to fix it, and Graham learning a personal lesson in growth. And instead of killing the guy, they like leave him trapped in a pod forever. Because yeah, that's a lot nicer than just killing him. Just leave him locked in there. Seems worse to me, but again, the moral stances the Doctor takes in this era sometimes are questionable. It's pretty bad. I don't think I like the guest cast that much, or maybe it's just the way they were written. It's just a mess. It's just a mess, this episode. Number 22 on the list is It Takes You Away. It took me away, all right, almost from the franchise. I think this is the one where Grace is the frog at the end. The idea of a sentient universe that can't come in contact with our own universe. Now they're making like universes sentient and feeling lonely. And of course we have to, shove in the terrible father part, neglecting his daughter because he's a terrible dad. We gotta have that in there. Gotta have that in there, of course. And then the bit when they're in between the mirrors just feels like a waste of time. If they went from one edge of the mirror to the other, you could have cut this episode in half. The bit in between doesn't work for me. Once again, there's nothing I can think of redeeming about this episode, other than some of the performances are good. Some of the actual acting performances. I like having the actress who played Grace back. She's really good. And then I think the main cast and the guest cast are doing fine. I just think the episode itself is stupid with a really dumb ending. Number 21 on the list is Flux. And while there are a couple part of Flux that are really good, the War of Sontarans is actually really good, and Village of the Angels is really good, and I really like Jericho as a character, even though he has quite possibly the dumbest death in all of Doctor Who. Just feels wasted. They kill him off for literally no reason. Then people might like him more than the Doctor. We can't have that. Let's just kill him off randomly. Both of those episodes would have worked really well as standalone episodes if we hadn't had pandemic stuff going, and they could have just been done as standalone episodes. I think they would have been really good. I love what Chris Chibnall does with the Sontarans in that episode. He does a pretty good job more often than not bringing back classic villains. I will give him that. I love the fact they have a more classic looking uniform. The actors playing them are good. And I love that bit about, well, why did y'all come back here? And he's like, I wanted to ride a horse. That's funny. It takes the Sontarans way more seriously than the modern series has, but it adds just a little humor in there, which I'm willing to let slide, like I am with that. And then the Village of the Angels episode core parts of it are really good. Linking it in with the it's good to yawn during Flux. How appropriate. Linking it in with Flux kind of kills it, and that ending where she turns into a statue is incredibly stupid. Just in concept it's stupid, and in execution it looks stupid. It looks like a CGI mess. And then just to find out in the next episode, the Angels, as terrifying as they are, were basically a taxi service. Okay, you're at your destination. That will be 3845. Now, I did like a little bit of episode 5 as well, when Jericho and Yaz and Dan were in the past trying to contact the Doctor and do all that. That's kind of fun. I would have loved like an episode of just them in the past getting on with it. And when they meet the one guy in the mountains, that is kind of funny. But as a whole, Flux does not feel complete. It feels clunky. It feels like they were going to have 10 episodes, and then it got cut down to 8, then it got cut down to 6, which is what happened. The problem is everything feels off because of it. The main two villains, Swarm and Azure, are really hyped up in the lead up to Flux. They're really hyped up in the first episode or 2 or 3 of Flux, and they go nowhere. You really like, oh wow, we used to dance among the universe back and forth, Doctor, and then nothing. They get defeated easily by not even anything the Doctor does. They just, we ascend. Their ending is sort of, they go nowhere when they're supposed to be done up as these big bands. Also, just their character design doesn't work for me. The actors playing them are fine, but their actual design I don't really care for. Once Upon a Time is a god-awful episode. It's just awful. Halloween Apocalypse is good as a first episode to try to set up what's going on, but it doesn't close up a lot of that, and then retroactively it makes it kind of an uninteresting watch. Parts of episode 5 don't do much for me, and then the conclusion in episode 6 doesn't do much for me. I do enjoy the scene where the Doctor's being interrogated by the Grand Serpent. I've talked about that before. I do really like that scene. That's definitely a standout moment for Whittaker. And then most of the universe gets destroyed, and we don't talk about it. It's not the first time something like that's happened. We kind of had that in Legopolis as well. But I just kind of got the impression it was a small amount of the universe. Whereas in Flux, it goes out of its way to show you it looks like a lot of it's gone. We see a lot of planets getting destroyed, and the whole reason they're getting destroyed, it specifically mentions, is because of the Doctor. She's like a cancer in there, so they're destroying everything and starting over because of the Doctor. All of this is happening because of the Doctor. It explicitly points that out in Flux. I'm pretty sure the 13th Doctor has the highest death count on her. Maybe even more than in the Time War. A good chunk of the universe gone because they wanted to wipe out the Doctor. That is indirectly her fault. Is there any accountability taken? No. Do we fix any of that? No. Do we ever talk about it again? No. Never comes up in the show. Just, we're in our rinky-dink tiny universe now. What about all the dead people? What can you do? Yeah, it's just a clunky mess. It does not feel like a complete whole. Mediocre is the best word I could give it. But it doesn't feel like a complete thought. It feels like several little thoughts chopped up into little pieces with parts left out and the rest of it thrown together, which is a lot of what it was. I mean, I guess it's impressive we got a season at all with everything that was going on then, but part of me kind of wishes they just waited because Flux is just such a mess. Right above it, in 21st place, probably higher than it should be, is the Timeless Children, which is also a mess. The only reason Timeless Children ranks higher than Flux is Timeless Children at least feels like a complete mess. It feels like the episode is what it was intended to be, whereas Flux feels incomplete, rushed, and there's a lot of it missing. A lot of it got chopped up and thrown out because the episode count got shortened. Timeless Children is awful. Awful. The retcon to the canon was unnecessary. It was done to push an agenda. You were not going to convince me of that otherwise. See, the Doctor's past was all like this. You just never knew it. To fit current BBC politics, I firmly believe that. And I don't think that was necessary. I think one of the great mysteries of the Doctor is not knowing what happened for an unearthly child. I was never a fan of the Cartmel Master Plan, or what's been later dubbed the Cartmel Master Plan, of exploring the Doctor's past, of him being a reincarnation of Omega. I have never been a fan of doing anything with pre-Hartnell Doctors. I'm not necessarily saying I'm against the idea of pre-Hartnell Doctors, but I've never really wanted to explore that. I feel like it takes the mystery away from the character. And when you take the mystery away from something, it becomes less interesting. Like finding out why Michael Myers is the way Michael Myers is in the Halloween franchise. I don't need to know that. The Curse of Michael Myers is a terrible movie. I know Dom loves that movie. But I don't like it. I don't need that explanation of it. That and the fact I think the director's cut of it is better. I think he was talking about that one time. Yeah, I don't need some supernatural reason for why Michael Myers does what he does. I don't need a backstory for Jason to find out why Jason is supernaturally alive. We get a backstory for Freddy, which kind of works in his case. But even if he hadn't had one, it would have been fine. So a lot of times, one of the reasons Midnight is very effective as an episode is that you don't know where the entity from Midnight comes from. And you don't know if it's killed when it's thrown out. We don't know anything about that entity, and that's one of the reasons why that episode remains effective. Now, if they did another episode where they explained how everything behind it, it would lose some of its magic. I don't need that with the Doctor. It's unnecessary. Even if you take all of the politics out of that, I don't need that. It's the same thing with the Morbius Doctors. To me, I just assumed they were other incarnations of Morbius, like a lot of people did. I never needed there to be previous Doctors. It seems like that's something I was fine not having. There's no reason to have that. But that's not the only problem with the episode, with it trying to shoehorn this canon in, and that's what it feels like. it once again screws up the Cybermen. It once again screws up the Cybermen, makes them the Master's servant. Then it creates the Cyber Time Lords, and that's a whole nother stupid idea that doesn't make sense. I've talked about that on the channel a lot. They die, but they can be brought back from death and still regenerate into undead. How does something regenerate from something undead to something else undead? Wouldn't that have destroyed the regenerative process? Okay. Willing suspension of disbelief went snap. Them Deus Machina blowing up the Cybermen ship. We just press this little button right here, everything blows up. Don't you just love that? There's like just a big red button. Bleep! That's the self-destruct button. Why would you build a self-destruct button? Snap! And then the bit when the Doctor's in the Matrix, you know, the mind of all Time Lords who have died. She's like, I'm going to overload it. And it's like, that would be like me going to the Hoover Dam saying, I'm going to break the Hoover Dam, taking an eyedropper and going, kip, 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 kip. That'll do it. Just a little bit of... There's so much stuff in this episode that makes no sense whatsoever. And I don't even know if I can take it seriously. That's why I can't go back and rewatch it. I just can't. It's so awful. I mean, all of the ones we've talked about so far are awful. Flux, from a narrative standpoint, is better. I'd call it mediocre. But it ranks lower just for being clunky and not feeling complete, being rushed out before it was finished. And for destroying most of the universe and there not being any accountability for that. But yeah, Timeless Children is just hot garbage, like everything else we've talked about, basically so far. Next on the list is Praxis, or whatever it is. Now this one is a big step up from the others. It's not complete garbage. It is extremely forgettable. I still think I've only watched Praxis once. It's just forgettable. It's uninteresting. It's just, it has some cool stuff, like the people in the gas mask, their design look cool. You know, I think the guest cast is fine for the most part, I guess. I mean, the one girl who sees her friend die and like 3 seconds later, it's like, eh. And then it never comes up again. I'm like, I don't remember most of it. There's a nice little reference in there to the Autons I liked. And then the one guy who gets killed because he walks too far out of the house, and I knew he was going to get killed. It's like, oh, you got to watch the birds. They're dangerous. And he walks like way down to the beach. And I'm sitting there going, dude, why are you all the way out there? And then when they attack him, he acts surprised. You know, if you do dumb things in a situation where you might get killed, you might get killed. So when he got killed, I'm like, see, I wouldn't even have been outside. But if I had, like, if I had to go outside, here's the door, here's me. Up, bird. Done. Back in the house. Yes. Hey, you want to go back outside and check again? Nope, I did it last time. There was a bird. You go. Yeah, we'll do paper, rock, scissors for it. Okay, you had paper, I had rock. Rock rips through paper. Get out there. It's like, I don't think it's it's garbage completely like the ones we've talked about. It's just uninteresting. I found it very boring, very forgettable. Like, Terminus is easy to remember than this is. Terminus. Number 18 on the list is the Witchfinders. I don't really care for this one either. First off, was it Alan? I believe who's playing King James. He's great. I love him as King James because he is hilariously awesome. He does it in a hilarious way without being over the top. And I love that. Best part of the episode. I think Jodie and the main cast are putting in good performances. The woman playing the one that gets taken over, the kind of really one that makes you want to slap her. The actress is doing a good job with it. I don't really care for the character, but the actress is doing a good job, pre-transformation and post-transformation. I don't like the effect for the people who are controlled, like the mud people. I don't like that effect. And then her, when she transforms, I don't like that effect. And then just the story itself, I don't care for. I did not like the story. Some good performances, but I didn't like the story. Next on the list is The Woman Who Fell to Earth. I'm always a little kinder to this one fresh off a rewatch, and that has to count for something. It has one of the most uninteresting villains the show has ever had in Tim Shaw. Although the actual Tim Shaw joke, I will admit, is funny to me. But just the villain, I don't care for. The guy whose sister disappeared is one of the stupidest characters in all of Doctor Who. He spends all this time preparing this. And then when the guy comes back, he doesn't have anything to protect himself. He like grabs him like a wrench or something. If you were going through all this trouble, wouldn't you have had some kind of ammunition or gun or something? I mean, I'd have been there with like a Gatling gun like Arnold Schwarzenegger, a minigun like Arnold Schwarzenegger in Terminator 2, or I'd had a tank. I'd have had something. One way or another, there's no way I would be dealing with all of this without some means to protect myself. It's like he never even thought of it. He sets up cameras. He pays to have the thing brought. He thinks of all this, but never thinks, it might be hostile. Maybe I should prepare. He kind of deserved what he got, to be honest with you. The Doctor surviving the fall through the train. We're going to chalk that up to regeneration energy, I guess. Doesn't make sense. Falling is what got the fourth Doctor killed. Although personally, the fact Tennant survived it is also questionable. Although at least he was cut up a little bit from falling through the glass. But yeah, she just falls through the train, and just pop, like literally just bounces right up, like pops right up. We're going to chalk it up to regeneration energy, but I'm still like, some of the special effects for the episode are really good. The scene when the guy throws his hamburger on Tim, who the fuck does that? Like, who does that? Why? It's like, it wants an excuse for him to be able to kill somebody else, and they do it in the most ridiculous way instead of him just killing somebody else. There's this dude dressed up like the Guyver. Let me throw my food at him, and then act surprised when he gets killed. Press X to doubt. Whittaker really has her first fail moment here with her try-hard speech at the end. Now get off this planet while you still have a choice. It's supposed to be her big doctor moment. I am the doctor. Doesn't land for me. Doesn't land for me. Like, I'm watching it going, not the doctor. Not the doctor, not the doctor. Does not land for me. And again, the way she solves this problem causes all of the problems in the finale, and Grace gets killed as a consequence. The 13th Doctor is not very good at protecting her companion. And in the very end of the episode, they all end up in space. She nearly gets everyone killed in this episode. Grace gets killed. Granted, Grace took her own initiative, but that she got killed, or she died. And then the Doctor almost literally gets herself and everyone else killed, and the only reason they don't die is someone just happens to pop along and save them. That happens a lot with this Doctor. A couple times just in the first season. We'll get to that. I do love the scene when she's making her Sonic, though. That's fun. I enjoy watching that. And it does have other moments I like. Again, I'm a little kinder to it when I'm fresh off a rewatch. Next on the list is the Subaru Canundrum. Whatever it's called, I don't know. This one is another one I'm a little more kinder towards, fresh off a rewatch. It has a lot of bad in it. I reviewed it recently. The pating, it looks terrible. It's like they're doing their own Baby Yoda. It looks terrible. I actually like the set design for the episode, which looks kind of like a cross between Star Wars and J.J. Abrams' Star Trek. But the actual set design looks pretty good. I enjoyed the ship. I like the one medical guy who dies early on because he gets stuck in the pod. I liked him as an actor. I wish we'd gotten more of him. I love the banter between him and 13 when she's like, yeah, I don't take orders very well or authority figures very well. And he's like, yeah, I'm getting that. I love how they butt heads. They have a really good dynamic. As the actors and the characters seem to have really good chemistry. I would have liked to have seen more of them together. Did not really care. I mean, the nurse, the other doctor or nurse or whatever she was, she's fine. I liked her. The woman who has the disease who can pilot the ship and her brother. The brother's fine. I don't really care for her as much. She has one bit when she's like, okay, bro. It feels forced. It feels like an actor saying lines, and I can't get past that. The android I liked. The guy playing the android was really, really good. He really came across as an android. I really liked him. Once again, Whittaker almost gets herself and her companions all killed at the beginning by running into a mine, and the only reason they don't die horribly, quickly, but horribly, they just happen to be picked up and fixed. Twice in her first season, she nearly gets everybody killed. Herself and all of her companions. She has a lot of companions. And the only reason they don't die is someone happens to come by and save them. Boy, this doctor really has and needs guardian angels around her. Not weeping angels, but guardian angels. And even Yaz gets fed up with the doctor a couple of times. Like when the doctor's trying to make a plan to stop the patine. Even Yaz like, are you sure about this? I don't know, because Yaz hasn't been written stupid yet. I mean, she hasn't been fleshed out much as a character, but she hasn't been written as stupid, lovesick Yaz yet. She's actually questioning the doctor, which good questions. The scene when the doctor's getting way overly excited about the warp drive the ship uses, even Yaz is like, we get it! We get it! She was definitely the audience's person on point in that story. Because we're all going, we get it! Yaz is going, we get it! So Yaz gets points for this episode. Next on the list is Rosa. Rosa is objectively a good episode if it's not a story you haven't heard about 70,000 times. This is a good episode for people in the UK, which of course, that's a UK show, because there's a lot of people in the UK who may not be familiar with the story of Rosa Parks, and it is an important story. It's an important part of American history, and it's definitely something people should see. However, if you live in the South, in Mississippi, in Alabama, it is a story you are very familiar with. You have heard a lot, to the point to where seeing it again becomes tediously annoying, which is exactly how I put it, tediously annoying. Because if I came up to you and said, hey, racism is wrong, you'd be like, yeah, it is. And I'd nod and go, yeah. And then if I came up to you the next day and said, hey, racism is wrong, you'd be like, yeah. And I'd be like, yeah. And then I came up to you the next day and said, hey, racism is wrong. You went, yeah. I'd be like, yeah. And then I came up to you the next day and said, hey, racism is wrong. You'd be like, dude, I know. At some point, now imagine we worked together and I did that to you for 40 years. 40 years. At some point, you're going to be like, dude, I get it. I know. I agree with you. We're good. You don't have to tell me that every day. That's pretty much my thoughts on Rosa. I know. I know about Rosa Parks. I know racism is bad. I know. That's one of my big problems with the episode. But that's because I'm from the South. I know this story. And a lot of the other civil rights era stories as well. But again, a UK show, and I can understand a lot of people in the UK not being familiar with something. That's why I never call Rosa a bad episode. I don't think I've ever called Rosa a bad episode. I have talked about my personal frustrations with that episode, which relate to the fact that I was born and raised in the southern states. But I've never called it a bad episode, because objectively it's not. Objectively it's a good episode. It has a lesson people should learn. Now, I have issues with some of the way the people in the cast are portrayed. I've talked about that several times on the channel, that the way the Southern people of the time are portrayed, specifically the white people of the time in the South, is extremely racist and stereotypical and caricaturish, which is exactly what the episode is supposed to be fighting against. I believe there are people like that back then, or there were people like that back then, just like there's people like that in the world now. That are racist pricks, or just people who don't get involved, who are indifferent. I don't believe that everyone, like literally everyone, was like that back then. There's no way that everyone, because if you actually look into the Rosa Parks account, everything changed about a year after that to where they passed laws. I think it was literally a year after that where they desegregated the buses, where white people sit where they want, black people sit where they want. They really, in about the span of a year, sorted all that. And there's no way they could have done that if there wasn't white people who were like, hey, we need to, this is wrong. We need to do something about this. And we need to get involved with the community, the black community, and put a stop to this. The fact that it turned around that fast, there had to be people on both sides who felt that way. people in the black community, people in the white community who felt that way. So it couldn't have just been every single white person either being blatantly racist or in some cases just indifferent and just ignoring what was going on. There's no way. I have huge issues with that because it feels like a stereotype. It feels like a cartoonish caricature of characters, and that really rubs me the wrong way as someone who was born, in the South and whose family has grown up in the South. And my grandmother would flat out, if she had been alive when this episode aired, I'm very sure would have told me that's not how it was, because my family lived in Alabama before I was born. My mother was born in Alabama, and her younger sister, my aunt, were born in Alabama, and I'm very certain that they would say, no. That's the issue I have with Rosa, personally. That being said, and I do, of course, have frustrations that people in the UK might see the episode and see that stereotype and not realize that it's incorrect. But that doesn't override from the point that it is a historical moment that everyone should know about, including the people in the UK. Also, I do really like that scene where Ryan meets Rosa Parks and Martin Luther King, and he's in that room with all of them. And just the sheer awe he has at being, in the presence of these cultural icons. And you can just, Toss does a really good job playing Ryan in this, and you can just see how awe he is in what is legends, basically, in the presence of legends. And that's pretty impressive. That's a really well done scene. Like that scene when he's like, hold on a second, Rosa Parks, I'm talking to Martin Luther King Jr., or the other way around. That's just that look on his face as he says it that's pretty cool. That's a pretty cool scene. Next on the list is Orphan 55. Orphan 55 does have some good things going on in it. It does have some bad things going on in it. It does have some stupid things going on in it. I did a whole video talking about the good, the bad, and the stupid of Orphan 55. I will always have to give it points because I didn't realize they were on Earth. The fact, especially considering that's such a trope at this point, it was Earth all along. I mean, even in Doctor Who, they've done that before. Even in Classic Who, they did that with the Sixth Doctor. So the fact they managed to keep the wool over my eyes until it's revealed they're on Earth in a very Beneath the Planet of the Apes style, which I can appreciate, is clever. And I'll always give it points for that. I did enjoy that. There's a couple other things I like I can't think of off the top of my head. I don't really care for the creature design. It's not all bad. It's okay, but I don't really care for it. The whole Benny, oh, Benny. And then you have the one girl who looks like John Candy in Spaceballs, or kind of like one of the creatures, I guess, from Warrior's Gate, while looking less impressive. Then you have the political commentary. The ending speech, which is one of the worst ending scenes in all of Doctor Who, reminds me, it's kind of the modern Who equivalent of the ending of Warriors of the Deep, which, to be fair, both of them are trying to be the ending of the Silurians, which is amazing, but neither of them can pull it off the way Silurians can, because just neither of them have the acting abilities of John Pertwee. Davison in the role doesn't pull it off in Warriors Gate. Whittaker in the role doesn't do it here. It just looks too much like she's preaching to us directly. I mean, it has about as much subtlety as hitting somebody over the head with a hammer right in front of their face. Hey, I'm going to hit you with a hammer. Do you get it? Do you get it? Do you get it? Do you get it? Yes. Yes. We get it. Thank you. We can move along now. Orphan 55 has some other good stuff I can't think of at the moment. It's not all bad, but it's a lot bad. I do love the reference to the Second Doctor in it. The bit when she tells him, okay, when I say run, run, run! Nice callback to the Second Doctor. I liked it. It didn't make a big deal about it. It just did it. And for those of us who know, we know. So it was a nice little shout to the Second Doctor, and I did appreciate that. Next on the list is the Ascension of the Cybermen. I've only watched this one the one time, but I remember liking it. I don't remember it in detail too much, but I thought it was a good follow-up. I like meeting the kind of, I forget his name, with the beard, the guest character, the one who has to sacrifice himself in the next episode. I like him. I like the setup of the story. I like the ending with the Master showing up. I enjoy everything going on in it. I don't remember it that well. But it ranked here when I was writing the list out. Next on the list is Resolution. I liked Resolution. It made the Doctor scary again. I'm the Doctor. And next on the list is Resolution. I like Resolution. It made the Daleks scary again. As good as Moffat can be, he wasn't very good with the Daleks. He really never seemed to get what made the Daleks work. I will give Chris Chibnall that. He uses the Daleks much more effectively in his Dalek stories. And you'll notice this is the first Dalek story we've got to on the list, and we're over halfway through the list. I like Resolution. It's a unique take on the Dalek. It gives an explanation for why this Dalek can do that while others can't. That is a special kind of Dalek, a recon Dalek. The idea of possession is just a frightening thing. I've talked about this before, where losing control over yourself, or becoming like a Borg drone or a Cyberman drone, is a scary thing. Just I think to anyone, or becoming a zombie or something. Not being in control of your own body, or the aliens from the War of the Worlds series. So the idea here is very similar to that of being puppeteered. Of course, she's still alive and conscious of what's going on in this situation too. It's really creepy. It's a unique spin on the Dalek, which I really like. Part of this works because the actress playing the woman who is possessed by it, she's great. She deserves all the praise for that performance. The scene when it's first revealed it's on her, and she's on the computer and she's arguing with the Dalek. Wonderful acting. Really enjoyed that. You are my puppet. She's on the computer. It's really good acting. So my hat's off to her in this. I feel like Whittaker and the crew are putting in a good performance in this episode. I like the fact she's wearing the scarf. It's very much a Member Berries thing. Remember when the Doctor wore a scarf? She's wearing a scarf. Remember, it is, but I like to see it. And then I enjoyed the scene when the Dalek and the Doctor confront each other, when she's holding its blaster at bay with the Sonic, when she's introducing herself to it. She has some really good dialogue there. She has a really good speech when she does that. Oh, I'm not human. She's like, go ahead, do a scan. And you see the two hearts. Who are you? Now, you ever have that scene where like an actor is doing a really good job, then they do a really bad job, and then they do a really good job, like all in the space of just a couple of lines? I don't like the bit when it's like, identify yourself. She goes, oh, mate, I'm the Doctor. Name ring any bells? I don't like the part where she says, I'm the Doctor. I don't know why. She seems a little too excited, like, I've been waiting for this line. I'm the Doctor. I don't like that. But the way she does the name ring any bells, I love that. I love that. So you have her just nailing it with that. Most of that whole speech I actually enjoy. And that I love that bit when she just carefree, she's like, go ahead, take a scan. I love that. But then when she says oh, mate, I'm the Doctor, or whatever, however she phrases it, I hate it. But then when she does the name ring any bells, I love that. That's great. And I like how right after that scene, when the Dalek's leaving, she's like, how long is a rail? Because it mentions something about in so many rails. I like that, because that's a very Doctor thing to say. I can see Tom Baker. How long is a rail? Or Patrick Troughton. How long is a rail again? I could see them actually like searching in their pockets for a little book that translates, like minutes into rails. I could see some of the Doctors saying that. So how long is a rail? That fits for me. That tracks for me. And I love the fact how she just like throws it with his gun with her Sonic. That bit when it tries to shoot her, she's like. Although I also love when the Dalek eventually overrode it. I like the design of this Dalek, the Recon Dalek, how it's using Earth technology to make its own body for itself. Because it's very obviously a Dalek, you can tell by looking at it, but it's a unique take on the Dalek, and I liked it. I love the scene when the Dalek just wastes the military soldiers. Because it once again shows how dangerous one Dalek can be in a way that we haven't seen since the episode Dalek, with this one Dalek just boom, 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 boom. You know, and the camera work in that scene's really good. And I love like when the tank shows up and shoots at it. And the Dalek shoots the missile. You see the little Dalek missile hit the big tank missile, and then keep going and hit the tank. I love that scene. It's just a really well shot, well written, well directed scene. Now the bit at the end, the stuff with Ryan's dad, don't really care about. The bit at the end when they use the mic, when they go around the console to the Dalek to put their microwave stuff on him, I don't really care for it because I don't see the Dalek missing all of them like that. That's and then the Dalek getting on the dad, and it fumbles a bit at the end. It stumbles at the end. It's a little clunky at the end. Although I do love the scene when Graham first opens the door, sees Ryan's dad, and just goes, no, shuts the door in his face. That's great. I love that. So overall, I enjoy it. It's a nice reinvention of the Daleks, which the Daleks really needed at that point. Next on the list, and we're moving into the ones I like. These top 11 are stories I really like. Like, I enjoyed the last few we talked about, like Resolution. But these top 11 are good. Like, not just Whittaker era good. They're good Doctor Who stories. I enjoy them. I like going back to rewatch them, although one of them I do need to actually go back and rewatch. But I really enjoy these stories. These stories we're about to talk about are good Doctor Who. For any era, good Doctor Who. Not just Whittaker era, they're just good Doctor Who. And number 11 on the list is Demons of the Punjab, which I've talked about several times on the channel. I think this is quite possibly one of the closest stories Doctor Who has gotten to hearkening back to classic, pure historical First Doctor stories. I have a whole video about how Demons of the Punjab really is a throwback to First Doctor pure historicals, because in my mind, for the definition of the parameters for pure historical, this kind of fits. There's a couple red herrings in there. There's a couple twists. There's one big gaping plot hole, which I have talked about in those other videos, so I'm not going to go into here. But I find this one a fun watch. I think Whittaker's putting in a good performance. I think the actors are all putting in a good performance. The main older brother is putting in a good performance. The guy playing the younger brother is putting in a good performance. I love the dynamic between them and how you see the fracture between them and how the events of the past have caused that fracture. The resolution of that when the main guy goes to confront the group at the end, that scene is amazingly shot, amazingly done. Like when the one guy draws a gun on him and he just looks at him, he's like, really? You know, we fought together, we made a good team. There's some really good dialogue in this story. And just the way everything wraps up is tragic, while teaching an important history lesson, which was, of course, one of the original points of Doctor Who when it was originally conceived. And that was a history lesson I wasn't familiar with, so it was a nice little educational moment for me. So I really like this one. I talk about it more in depth in those videos. Next on the list at number 10 is Fugitive of the Jadoon, and this one is a roller coaster. It is just going and going and going and going and keeping you on your toes. And it worked for me. It works for me on rewatch really well too. I've watched this one more than once, and it still keeps the adrenaline going, keeps it flowing. I think Jo Martin is great as Ruth and as the Ruth Doctor, the Fugitive Doctor. She puts in a good performance. The guy playing Lee in the episode does a really good job of how he's kind of watching after her as her companion. Even the guy in the bakery shop that likes Ruth, the actor playing him is good. He plays it with this wonderful comedic bit and timing, which is really funny. I liked him. It's good to see the Jadoon back. I love the Jadoon, so it's always nice to see them. I just enjoyed the story. It's good to see Jack back too. I like John Barrowman, so I like seeing Captain Jack back. And it had been so long since we saw him that I really liked that bit when he's like, you can get excited now, and then it flickers and boom, there he is. I loved that scene. It was great. It was kind of a glorified cameo, but it was great. And I'm glad we got more of him later. And I love the fact he thinks Graham's the Doctor, and when he finds out it's not the Doctor, and when he finds out the Doctor's a woman, I like that. He needs to know, and Graham's like, she. And you just see Captain Jack. He loves it. He just loves it. He's all excited. I love that. I love that. It's a really fun episode. It really is. Number 9 on the list is Spyfall. I like Spyfall. Part 1 is better than Part 2, But it's a great little James Bond story that the Third Doctor could be proud of. I think Whittaker is good in it. I love Sacha Dhawan in this when he's playing O and when he's playing the Master. That's wonderful performance, how well he acts both of the characters differently. It's nice to have Stephen Fry in it, even though I wish we'd had more of him in it. But it's nice to have him in there. Yeah, it has that little annoying line about everyone knows the Doctor is a man. I've had an upgrade. Yes, that's eye-rollingly annoying, but we can look past that. Yes, the beings of light aren't utilized very well. They're stopped very easily, and you kind of wonder what's the point. I kind of expected to see them again. I'm kind of surprised we haven't. They kind of remind me of the special edition of the Invasion of Time, actually, which I've never got to see the whole thing of Invasion of Time, the special edition, but I've seen the clips on YouTube with it. You know, those beings of light. I'd love for somebody to tie those stories together. And maybe, because I know in Invasion of Time they're actually humans, but these could also be humans from another universe, just not fully materialized through. I wish they'd done more with that, but the special effects look good. I enjoy some of the other stuff going on in it. Bringing in some real life historical figures I was unaware of was really neat, especially learning the woman who fought in World War II. I actually looked her up afterwards and learning that she was executed only like a year or two later. Because she was found out as a spy. It was tragic and heartbreaking, but I guess it's just one of those things the Doctor can't interfere. So it's a really fun episode. I really enjoyed it. In 8th place is Eve of the Daleks. Ooh, I love me a good Groundhog Day story when it's done right. This one is done well as a Groundhog Time story, you know, a time loop story, but it has a nice new wrinkle of where the loop is slowly closing in on itself with each loop getting a minute shorter. That's a nice little twist. I like it. I like both of the guest actors in it, the guy with the glasses and the woman. I think she's a comedian in real life. I like both of them. Watching them watching her, he already likes her, but watching her kind of grow to like him is fun and interesting. I love the scene when they go into his storage unit and it's all the memorabilia from exes. And they're all like weirded out and they're like, oh, your exes, are they alive? And he's like, yes! And how everyone there's thinking it, just like we in the audience are kind of like, that was funny. That amused me. I love the Daleks' new Gatling guns. I like that Gatling gun design, which is amusing to me because they're terrible shots in this. Let's be honest, there's some stormtrooper shooting going on in some, especially in these narrow hallways. It's like, how do you miss? It's like Jeff Bridges in Dumb and Dumber. Miss. Stormtroopers that couldn't hit the broadside of a planet. Oh, I love that. That's a little silly, but... And the Doctor's big speech in this one doesn't work for me either. The bit about, we try again, we draw together, and I'm sitting there going, nope, nope, nope. Try hard speech not working. Nope, not buying it. Nope. But I enjoy the episode other than that. It's fun. I like the ending of it. And I'm glad the guy and the woman ended up together at the end. And I do feel like the chemistry grew between them. And I love that bit when the Dalek tells the guy, he's like, do not move. And he's like, no, I'm going to move. And then when he ducks to have them shoot each other, that's a little cliche, ducking and having them shoot each other. But it's funny. And I enjoyed it. I liked it. I always find the Dalek stories in this era to be really good, or to be pretty good. That brings me to number 7, which is Revolution of the Daleks, which I also really enjoyed. It's nice to have Jack back. It's weird that the Doctor let her still stay in prison that long. That's not a very Doctor thing to do. I'm pretty sure other Doctors would have gotten out of that. But it's nice to have Jack back. I like his little escape plan. It seems a little too easy, but I like it. I enjoy it bringing the Dalek Civil War aspect back into it, much like Remembrance and Revelations did. The idea of cloning what was left of the Recon Dalek, I can see that, you know, man once again messing with stuff he shouldn't and then paying the consequences of it. I enjoy, once again, seeing that kind of Recon Dalek armor. I like that. I like that design. So it's nice seeing that again. People, it's so weird to me that people don't recognize it, because in Modern Who, the Daleks have invaded several times. People have seen the Daleks. Somehow they just forget. So when they see these designs, nobody freaks out. I do like that the one lady, I don't know if she's the Prime Minister or who she is now, that she kind of gets hers coming to when the Daleks exterminate her too. But watching the real Daleks show up and just massacre the human Daleks is hilarious to me. I enjoy that. Watching the Doctor trick them at the end. That scene of them all swarming in the TARDIS, that special effects shot looks amazing. Seeing them all swarm in, it's really amazing. I enjoyed that shot. And then her tricking them and destroying the TARDIS. It's a little against character because I don't think the Doctor would sacrifice a TARDIS like that. The TARDIS is a living entity that would have to destroy itself. I don't think she would do that. It feels very out of character for the Doctor. Not very out of character for this Doctor. The, again, morally questionable Doctor. But then again, maybe that's the only reason she can get rid of the Daleks, so it's kind of a lesser of two evils thing. But most Doctors, I think, would try to find another way. But still, not very out of character for this Doctor. But it's still a good episode overall. I enjoyed it. And then even the Trump guy feels like he has some character growth in this one. He feels a little more fleshed out as a character. He has some Weasley moments, but he also has some does the right thing moments. And number 6 on the list is The Haunting of Villa Diodati, I think. I do like this one a lot. The only reason it's probably not higher is I just haven't watched it in a while. I think I've only watched it the one time. I really liked it though. I enjoy the camera work in it a lot. It looks really, really good. I love the idea of like walking out of a room just to be walking back into a room. I enjoy the idea of the lone Cyberman. I like how it builds up the Cyberman. I actually figured out it was the Cyberman too beforehand. When they kind of see the silhouette of him. Kind of reminded me of an army of Ghost before they fully materialized when they were just kind of shadows. So I kind of had that pegged. So I like how the first part is kind of a mystery of what's going on. And the second part is, of course, dealing with the lone Cyberman, which is a really unique take on the Cybermen. I really like him. The actor playing him does a really good job. And I like how it brings in Mary Shelley. Contradicting some Big Finish stuff, but I still like how they bring Mary Shelley into it. I don't really like how the whole Cybermenium stuff works and how the Doctor has to give it up to save the future. You know, she pretty much creates her own problem that she has to deal with in the next 2 episodes by giving it up there. I mean, her back's kind of against the wall, but I feel like other Doctors would have figured it out. Maybe. And the bit when she has to make, Percy Shelley fast forward to his own death because in real life he drowned. That's how he died. So she has to kind of make him glimpse that to make the thing come out of him. That's kind of ghoulish to me. He's probably like, what happened? I can't talk about it. It's a little ghoulish to me to know that he still drowns. I think not far from then. But the episode itself is a good one. It's just hard for me to go into details on it because it does really need a rewatch. I actually need to do that soon. I need to rewatch that one. Number 5 on the list is Kerblam. I always like Kerblam. It's fun. It's not perfect, but it's fun. I don't look for messages, and I know some people are like, well, it's giving off mixed messages about what it's trying to say. Maybe it's not trying to say anything. Maybe it's just trying to be a good Doctor Who story. And in that regard, it succeeds. I enjoy the guest cast well enough. I don't like that the one girl died. The one girl that the kind of guy who turns out to be psychotic likes with the bubble wrap, although that's the second time I've seen green bubble wrap be deadly in Doctor Who. Even though this one's not as good as the other one that does it. But, you know, everybody's putting in a good performance in this. The guest cast, the main cast. I enjoy the bit with the robots. I love the little bit with the Fez, which shows just, to me, that's a nice knock at how long some of these places like Amazon take to deliver anything. It took so long to deliver the Fez that it's 2 generations later. That's how I see that. That's funny to me. I like the resolution of it. I think it's a fun episode. Good stuff going on. I know I enjoyed it when I rewatched it earlier in the year. It's a lot of fun. Number 4 is the Tesla episode, Nikola Tesla's Night of Terror, or whatever it's called. This one partially works because the guy playing Tesla is so good. He just nails that role. That is the anchor of the episode for me. The guy playing Edison is good, and I do believe he is a Classic Who alum as well. Whitaker's actually doing pretty good in this episode. The companions are doing a good job in this episode. I love how once they start realizing who Tesla is and all the ideas he had, how they're like, hey, that's kind of like stuff we have now, like the internet, you know? So they can see how ahead of his time he was. The actual story I'm fine with, you know, a race of scavengers that can't create anything, so they have to steal and coerce for everything they have. I like that. I enjoy that. Kind of reminds me of Marvel, actually. They can't create everything, so they steal everybody else's ideas. I like that. And it comes together really well. I think the guy playing Tesla does so good that when I think of Tesla, I don't think of Tesla. I think of this guy playing Tesla, and that works for me. And it ends on such an optimistic note at the end, unlike, say, Vincent and the Doctor, which is a very depressing episode. This one ends on a much happier note, because we know Tesla didn't have the easiest life. He had a bit of a sad end. But I love his optimism here about, you know, let them have today. The future, let them have the present, I have the future, or that bit, and the future is mine. Whatever he says there, I love that. The future is mine. And he walks off with a smile. That's how you end an episode of Doctor Who. That's why this episode will always be better than Vincent and the Doctor to me. It's just better made. I just love how everything flows together. And plus, I love the fact they have the girl that plays Ronnie in Sarah Jane Adventures playing kind of the queen of the scavenger people in this. I love when they keep like Doctor Who stuff in-house like that, so that's pretty cool. Number 3 is Can You Hear Me? I really enjoyed this one on rewatch. The guy playing the male god is just so creepy. I like him. I can't remember his name, but I like him. He's just so creepy in this. The scenes when he's interacting with the Doctor are just so good. Just what he does with his face, what he does with his voice, he's good. Whittaker's all right in this one. She has her moments. She has her not moments, but she's fine in it. The actress playing the female god is good too, because she's creepy in a different kind of way. What I like about them is they're almost a yin and a yang, but not in the fact that they're opposites, but in the fact that their evil is very different. The way their evil is like different. The vibes they give off are different, and I like that. Where he's just silently creepy. She's more in your face. Yeah, I'm evil, and let's decimate them. Whoa! I like that. They're both putting in good performances. The companions are good. I like watching Ryan try to reconnect with one of his friends. Love getting more backstory for Yaz, who really needed some backstory at this point. I like the fleshing out with her a lot. And then even with Graham, getting to reconnect with some of his mates. I like that. I enjoy everything that's going on with this. The ending is a little Deus Machina, let's be honest. And learning that the screwdriver can hack the fingers of gods. It's a bit of a stretch. It can't work on wood, but fingers of gods. It's a little Deus Machina and over quickly, but I'll forgive it a little bit because the ending scene when the Doctor confronts them and stops them is great. And Whittaker gives a great performance there. How she just controls the room. You know, when they're all, we are gods and we can do whatever. And she's like, whatever. I'm the Doctor. I can stop you. She feels like the Doctor. Whittaker does a good job in this episode, especially there at the end, feeling like she is the Doctor. Being in control of the situations, like she's looking at them as gods going, meh, puny gods. I like it. I really like it. Really on fire with this one. I really enjoy it. Number 2 on the list is The Ghost Monument. This one is a lot of fun. Once again, the Doctor having to be rescued right at the beginning because she almost got herself and all of her companions killed. But I like this one. A lot of the reason is I love the guest cast. The guy who's running stuff, you know, from the little tent holograms, I like him. The male and female guest stars, I really like both of them and how they interact together and how they interact with our regular cast. I enjoyed that. I love the bit with the living bandages. I've talked before about how that reminds me of a Thundercats episode I really like, so that's really cool. I love the idea of living bandages. That's just creepy and cool. And the only thing I would have loved to have seen them done is more wrap people up. Like it does the one guy for a scene, but just try to wrap them up and immobilize them. That was really cool. How the Doctor stopped them with the fire was pretty neat. It is the first time it mentions timeless children, and that's crap, but learning the water itself is deadly is pretty neat, but I wish they'd done more with that. They don't really do anything with that. It just kind of happens. The bit with the androids doesn't really do much for me. Finding out the Ghost Monument is the TARDIS, which I knew was coming. I called that. and that it had been happening so long that it had become legend. That was pretty cool. I enjoyed that. The bit at the end when she walks in the new TARDIS, I don't really care for. I really like it a lot. I was rolling my eyes. And the fact, in that episode, we never really get a good shot of the interior of the TARDIS. You know, it's not like a pulled back shot where you can really see all of it. It's a bit annoying. But overall, I really like this episode and find it fun. Do I have it a little higher than I should have? Maybe, but I like it. And number 1 on the list is Power of the Doctor. Now, this episode is not perfect from a story standpoint. It has problems. I mean, the whole bit about the Master taking over the Doctor's body. I mean, it's not the first time that kind of stuff has happened in Doctor Who. The Master was trying to steal the Doctor's lives in the TV movie. The Master did possess Sheamus's body in Keeper of Traken. So, I mean, it's not like it's coming out of nowhere, but it's still a little odd and clunky. It does give us an excuse for us to visit the other Doctors, you know, in her mind and her consciousness. And that's pretty cool, and I enjoyed that scene. The bit at the beginning with the train is a little... doesn't really need to be there other than to give Dan an excuse to leave, which is kind of quick. We really don't spend much time with Dan, which is a shame because I like John Bishop in the role. The Cyber Time Lords I never really liked, but at least here it makes sense in the plot. Like, they're like, oh, we stopped the Cybermen, and then they get back up, and you're like, crap. So as much as I don't like the Cyber Time Lords, or the Cyber Leaders, whatever you call them, as long as I never see them again, I'm happy. But it made sense for them to at least be here from a plot standpoint. Sasha's putting in a good performance as the Master. I like the idea that the Rasputin was the Master. I enjoy that. I actually love when it does the Rasputin song. Yes, that's silly, and yes, it's not something a classic Master would have ever done, but it's funny. It gives it a pass. It gave me a chuckle. Even the bit when the Cybermen and the Daleks look at each other like, what? It's funny. The idea of the Cybermen and the Daleks and the Master all working together is a little odd to me, but whatever, plot convenience. The fact that they managed to Deus Ex Machina the Cybermen and the Daleks is... We got to rush through the episode. We got other stuff to do. There's a lot of stuff that happens because it has to happen in the episode, but I enjoy it. I love having Tegan and Ace back. I really do. Because I love both of them as companions, and I like Janet and Sophie a lot. And it's nice to see some classic Who fans back in modern Who proper. I enjoy that immensely. Both of them feel like their characters. Ace, about halfway through when she puts on the jacket, feels like she's trying to be like 18-year-old Ace again, which feels a little weird. But Sophie's still putting in a good performance. And I absolutely love what they do with Tegan, because I can see her holding the grudge I can see her holding the grudge she holds. I'm very tired. Toward the Doctor. It feels in character for her to be holding that, so that makes sense. And then I love the bit when the Doctor is incapacitated that they have the hologram 13th Doctor running around. One, that's a good way for Whittaker to be sidelined because the Master's in her body, but still have her in the episode since it is her final episode. So it's a good way to still have her running around in the story. And then it also gives us the opportunity to have those moments with Tegan and Ace reconnecting with their Doctors when the hologram switches into the 5th Doctor and 7th Doctors respectively, which is one of the heart and soul pieces of the episode for me, and I'm sure for a lot of other classic fans, to see Davison and Janet interacting and Sophie and Sylvester interacting, because of course the actors all get along in real life, so it's nice to see that. And then the ending of the story is fine. I like the fact that the regeneration isn't overly drawn out. I mean, we do get the little bit with Yaz and the Doctor together, but it's fine. But she kind of just, look after the next one, goes on and does her regeneration. The regeneration scene itself is fine. Her final words are fine. The actual regeneration is good. I like it. I loved seeing the meeting of all of the old companions, seeing William Russell back, which set a Guinness Book World Record, was really cool to see. Seeing Joe there, seeing Mel there, I enjoy all of that. That was a really nice little touch. I enjoyed it. And then, of course, the ending shot of Tennant doing his what? Yeah, that's Tennant. That works. I like that. So it's a strong episode. I really enjoy it. It's got problems, but it gives me my nostalgia member berry happy feels, so it gets number 1 for that. So that's how I would rank the Whittaker era. I'd like to know how you would rank the Whittaker era, so comment down below and let me know. Don't forget to click the like button and the subscribe button. I have a link to my Patreon down there as well if you're interested in supporting me that way. I want to give a shout out to some of my top tier patrons, Stephen Crane, Colin Coney, and Finn Perkins. I appreciate their support. As I do the support of all of my patrons, it does make a difference. My P.O. box is down there. If there's anything you'd like to send me to look at and review, as is a link to my Amazon wish list. Memberships, YouTube memberships are available as well. Most importantly, thank you for watching.